Spring Meadow. The first delicate flowers herald the end of a harsh winter. The sun shines longer day by day and pushes the snow back. Lush meadows bloom and curious marmots wake from hibernation. Finally, spring is coming to the mountains. It's the perfect time for a hike. Choose your route carefully. Watch out for the burrows of the marmots. And pack enough snacks. Your chances to earn an Edelweiss hiking pen are rather low if you sit hungry in the snow. Welcome to the video tutorial of Spring Meadow. We will explain the game to you so you can leave the rules in the box. Aim of the game. What am I actually supposed to do in this game? In Spring Meadow, players place meadow tiles onto their mountain boards to make them bloom. Creating the largest snow-free area will earn a player a hiking pen during a scoring phase. The first player to earn their second hiking pen wins the game. Setup. How do I set up the game? Place the hiking map with the side that corresponds to the number of players face up in the center of the table. Shuffle all meadow tiles and randomly place one on each of the 25 spaces of the hiking map. Place the remaining meadow tiles back into the box. You will need them later to refill the hiking map. Place the rock tiles, marmots, the picnic and hiking pens, and the compass within reach of all players and a common supply next to the hiking map. Place the signpost outside of the hiking map, next to the player count icon. Shuffle the mountain boards and give one to each player. Depending on your table space, choose if you want to orient the double-sided mountain boards vertically or horizontally. For a better game, we recommend that all players use the same orientation. Place the double-sided mountain board in front of you in a way that the arrow is pointing up. The player who is last on a mountain is the start player. The other players take a rock tile, the size of which is determined by the player count and player order. With 2 players, the second player takes a 2-space rock tile. With 3 players, the second player takes a 1-space rock tile, and the third player a 3-space rock tile. With 4 players, the second player takes a 1-space rock tile, the third player a 2-space rock tile, and the fourth player a 3-space rock tile. Burrows. What's up with those spaces? You can see burrows on every mountain board. These burrows count as covered spaces for the scoring phase and therefore do not need to be covered during the game. A burrow that is visible through the whole of a meadow tile is called a cleared burrow. Each cleared burrow is worth 1 point during a scoring phase. When you cover a burrow with a meadow tile so that it isn't visible anymore, you must place a marmot on top of one of your cleared burrows. In other words, you are only allowed to cover a burrow if you already have a cleared burrow. Burrows covered by marmots no longer count as cleared burrows. Player turn. What can I do when it's my turn? Starting with the start player, the game proceeds in a clockwise direction. On your turn, you first check if a scoring phase is triggered. Then you choose a meadow tile and place it on your mountain board. Afterwards, determine if you may take a rock tile. And finally, move the signpost one step further. Signpost. When is a scoring phase triggered? The signpost marks the active line for your turn. If at the beginning of your turn, there is 1 or less meadow tiles left in the active line on the hiking map, a scoring phase is triggered. With 2 players, a scoring phase is triggered if there are 2 or less meadow tiles left in the active line. The scoring phase will be described in detail later. Active line. Which meadow tile may I choose? Choose a meadow tile from the active line of the hiking map and place it on your mountain board. With 3 players, make sure you also use the diagonals as active lines. If you cannot place any of the meadow tiles legally, you must skip placing a tile that turn. When you place a tile, you must follow these rules. The placement rules. What is important? You may place meadow and rock tiles on your own mountain board. You may flip and rotate tiles. You may place tiles adjacent or scattered. You may place a meadow tile with its hole opening over a burrow. You may not move tiles after placement. You may not place tiles on top of or overlapping other tiles, or in a way that they extend over the edge of your mountain board. You may only cover a burrow by placing a tile if you already have a cleared burrow. If you want to just test a meadow tile on your mountain board, mark its position in the active line with the compass. That way you can easily find its place again if you want to choose another tile. Players that receive a rock tile during setup place it in addition to their meadow tile during their first turn. Rock tiles. What happens if I place holes side by side? If the hole or holes of a newly placed meadow tile are horizontally and/or vertically adjacent to at least one other hole, that is called a group. When you create or expand a group, take one rock tile from the supply and place it immediately on your mountain board. The size of the rock tile is dependent on the number of holes in the group. For 2, 3, 4, or 5 or more adjacent holes, take a 1, 2, 3, or 4 space rock tile. Holes with snow or cleared burrows count towards the number of holes in a group. Burrows with a marmot on top do not count as holes. If there are more than 5 holes in your group after expanding it, you still only take a 4 space rock tile. You may always choose to take one smaller rock tile instead. You may not split a bigger rock tile into multiple smaller ones. Some of the meadow tiles have 2 holes. If you expand a single group, you take 1 rock tile. If you expand 2 separate groups, you take 2 rock tiles. The 2-space meadow tile with 2 holes does not create a group on its own. Move on. What am I doing at the end of my turn? At the end of your turn, move the signpost 1 step further in the clockwise direction. After that, it is the next player's turn. Use the markers on the border of the hiking map to see when it will be your turn again. In the 3 and 4 player game, it is the start player's turn at this mark, the second player's turn at this mark, the third player's turn at this mark, and the fourth player's turn at this mark. In a 2-player game, it is the start player's turn at the odd marks, and the second player's turn at the even marks. Scoring phase. How do I get the hiking pins? If at the beginning of your turn, there are 1 or less meadow tiles left in the active line of the hiking map, a scoring phase is triggered. With 2 players, a scoring phase is triggered if there are 2 or less meadow tiles left in the active line. The active player takes a picnic as a compensation because they do not get a turn before the scoring phase. The picnic counts as 2 additional points during this scoring phase. Count the fully covered rows starting from the bottom up to the first incomplete row. Burrows already count as covered spaces. Each fully covered row is worth 10 points. Add the covered spaces of the first incomplete row. Each covered space in that row is worth 1 point. Fully covered rows above the first incomplete row do not count in the scoring phase. Finally, add all of your cleared burrows independently of their position on your mountain board. Each cleared burrow is worth 1 point. The player with the most points in total wins the scoring phase. They take the picnic of this scoring phase and turn it hiking pen side face up. In case of a tie, the tied player who has not placed a meadow tile the longest wins. Then, the winner must place marmots on top of all their cleared burrows. Refill. When do we refill the meadow tiles? After the scoring phase, refill the empty spaces of the hiking map with randomly drawn meadow tiles from the box. When all 25 spaces are refilled, the game continues. The active player whose turn got interrupted continues as usual by choosing a mountain tile. Game end. Who won? The first player to earn their second hiking pen wins the game. Depending on the player count, the game will end after 3 to 5 scoring phases. For the expert variant and the solo game, please check out the rulebook. And now, you are ready to enjoy Spring Meadow.